Welcome back, everyone. I hope y'all really enjoyed that intro, and well, I just want to reiterate thank you so much from everyone here at the Milton Center for being a part of our Build a Bridge program. As stated in the introduction, my name is Zane Patterson, and I currently serve as the Graduate Assistant for the Milton Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, and will be graduating with my Master's in Business Administration here in May. So I'm excited to get started. I hope y'all are. So let's dive into idea generation. So what is idea generation? Why are we talking about it? Well, we're talking about it because it's all about one thing. It's all about problems and finding solutions to those problems, right? So we're going to talk about that here in a second when we talk about problem finding. So that's actually the first step of this whole process, problem finding. So you're probably thinking, well, what is problem finding? So problem finding means sensing, anticipating, and seeking out customer problems and needs, social changes, technology trends, and opportunities for improvement. So what does that even look like, Zane? That's just a bunch of words. So let's actually hone in specifically on the technology trends right now, because right now we're in something really cool, and if y'all have not looked into it, I urge you, please do, because it's amazing. Right now we're in a second space race, basically. We have private industry that is just storming the satellite launch and even human launch systems market and just flooding it, and it's amazing. We're getting beautiful works like the Falcon 9 rocket that has launched now 6 people to the International Space Station, and that is a private company. That's SpaceX, which is owned by Elon Musk. And then you have other companies such as Blue Origins, which is owned by Jeff Bezos, and he's trying to do the exact same. You have others that are specifically for small sat launches, and that would be companies like Astra or Rocket Lab. And it's amazing. We're living in such a brilliant time for looking at it and problem finding along the lines of technology trends. Because do you want to know why all of these companies got started? Well, I'll talk first about SpaceX, and then I'll talk about the whole market in general. So SpaceX was founded in 2002 after Elon Musk wanted to have some satellites launched, but he could not have them for a reasonable price. The Russians wanted to charge him some ungodly amount, and he said, no, that's too much. I can do this on my own. And so SpaceX was founded, and almost flopped. The Falcon 1 rocket only launched 4 times. 3 out of the 4 were unsuccessful, but the last one made it. So, that's going to be a lesson for another day about succeeding through your failures. But let's go back to the problem that he was solving. He was solving the problem of the fact that launching satellites was so expensive. So how do you bring that cost down? Well, the problem is the fact that rockets are usually single use. And you use it once and it's done. It falls off in the ocean or it burns up coming in from the atmosphere, right? So how do you solve that? Well, you do some amazing engineering that I don't even fully understand, that you end up bringing your booster back down from space and landing it and being able to reuse it, right? And so that's going to bring down the cost tremendously. And now you have a bunch of people who are flocking to this market and saying, wow, we want to launch on your Falcon 9 rocket, Mr. Musk. We think it's brilliant. How do we get our small sats, which are CubeSats, they're usually about this big, how do we get a chance to use your rocket since they're so cheap? Well, the issue with doing that is the technology is there and the price is low, but now you've introduced a problem of having to launch a bunch at one time. So when you have to launch a bunch of small satellites all at one time, it has to be on a timeline that works for everyone, right? And let's say you really have to get your little satellite up at a particular time. Then someone like SpaceX right now probably wouldn't be your best option. So you're thinking, well, I love that they've brought the cost down, but how do I, launch on my schedule? And that's where companies like Rocket Lab come into play. So Rocket Lab is a small sat launcher, and they saw the problem of larger launch providers not taking care of people who just have small payloads and putting them on long waiting lists and saying, oh, well, we'll launch your satellite in a year or two, right? Well, these people are now being able to turn to other companies such as the Rocket Lab or Astra and say, I want this launched. And they say, okay, we'll launch it in 6 months. And that has been a whole new trend, and that's another technology trend. So it's a problem that was created by the market and solved by the market. So how do you find these problems, though? How do you know what's a problem in your life? So let's look at that. So how do you find problems? Bugs list. Bugs lists are amazing. I use them all the time. I think that they're applicable to everything in life, just about. So bugs list is where for a certain amount of time, usually a week or a month, you write down every single thing that bothers you throughout the day, right? So you're driving to school, traffic's awful, I hit a bad pothole, there was a wreck that made me late, when I did get to school, my locker didn't open. Because my locker didn't open and the time between periods is too short, I was late to my second class, right? So that would be an example of a bugs list. And then you take all of those and you work through them and you say, okay, well, these all have a common theme of me not having enough time to do what I need, right? So you would look at that common theme, and that would be a really strong problem to solve because it has multiple bugs attached to it. So that would be something that you would move forward into fact finding. So looking at my cell phone case, I would look at things that bug me, right? I would look at the fact that the leather is kind of cheap. I would look at the fact that it's breaking on the inside. And I would look at the fact that, it's just not the best. And so I would look at it and say, okay, well, these are the things that bug me about it. What do I do next, right? So that's kind of talking about bugs list and then problems in general. So next you can do surveying. So go out to your peers, go to other students and say, hey, what's bugging you? What's a problem that you have in your daily life? And then listen to them and take notes, right? So ask them, these questions, and then as you take notes, look for underlying themes. And if you see the same thing popping up multiple times with one person, make a note of that. But then if you talk to multiple people and they all list the same problem, that is something worth finding a solution for, right? So that's something that you would move forward with. Beyond that, you can do problem analysis. So you can take a single problem that you think is just mundane. You're just like, I feel like I don't have enough time to go between my classes. I feel like I need more time. Why? Well, I just don't feel like I have enough time to run between one place and the other. Okay, why? Well, you see, I have to stop by and chat with a few people. The class usually gets late, and, I'm a little slow. Okay, well, why? Well, like I said, I stop and talk. I have to stop and grab some water on the way. And then, it's not the closest distance. Traffic in the hallway is a mess. Okay, well, why is traffic in the hallway a mess? Traffic, that's a good question. Traffic in the hallway is probably a mess because, people are just walking all over the place. You have a whole herd of people walking together. That's a good question, though. And so that's how you do problem analysis. You take one problem and dive into it and continue to go deeper. Continue to ask yourself the question, why, right? So then another option you can use is brainstorming. I'm going to bring back the phone again here. So I love this phone case. I do hate that it's had its issues. So why do I love this phone case? Well, I love this phone case because it protects my phone. It has a wallet that magnetically attaches to the back. Up until this point, it's been relatively durable, so it's lasted me about 2 years. Those are the things I like about it. Well, okay, what are some problems I have with it? Well, obviously the leather is starting to wear out. It's not a high quality leather. There's this weird seam in it that's been there since I bought it. As I said earlier, it's breaking. The buttons stick a little bit. And I would say those are kind of the biggest problems I have with it. And so you look at them, and if you go underneath all of those problems, one of the biggest underlying issues with it is long-term quality. And so the underlying factor is this phone case was not made to survive more than 2 years. And that's fine. Usually phones don't last more than 2 years anyways nowadays. So it was designed with that in mind. But to me, that's a problem, right? So that's how you go through and think about it and write everything down and sometimes make a map of it and say, well, this is a problem. How do I connect it to something else? The buttons being a problem and the leather being a problem. And then you would draw those back to the fact that it's a quality issue, right? So that would be how you walk through and do some brainstorming activities. And we'll actually do some of these in the activity that comes along with this. So, what next? Now that you kind of know what your problem is, let's talk about fact finding. So, what makes your problem real? What do you know about it? And just as importantly, what do you not know? So, what makes my problem real? Well, my volume randomly turns up in the middle of class and I get a text message and it just blares out, right? Because the button's stuck, right? So that's some things I know about. I know that this is ugly because you can look at it and tell, right? That's what makes the problem real. And so those are some basic facts I know. What do you know about it? So I know some of the things I like and that I don't like. I've already talked about the quality being an issue. I really like this pattern on the side that makes it easier to grip. I like a number of things, but I don't like the quality. I don't like this ridge right here. Overall, it's a good shape. I know that it has to have these particular holes, right? That's what I do know. And I can look at it and know what size that is if I measure it properly. So I know these things, but what do I not know? Well, I don't know what kind of leather this is. I don't know why this leather is breaking down the way it is. I don't know actually how these are made. I'm assuming they're just molded, but I can't tell you for sure. And more than that, I don't know what this is made out of. Obviously, the sides are some kind of rubberized plastic. There's a magnet in the back that holds the wallet part. And it has a harder plastic component in the back as well. So those are the things I don't know and that I might need to know. Actually, I do need to know before I go off and try to find a solution for it, right? So that's what fact finding is. What do you know? What do you not know? Finding what you don't know and being able to put it all together. So next, now that you have your problem, you know about it, you need to define it. So problem definition is all about using key facts to summarize your problem, creating challenges that will lead to solutions. So I recognize that my problem is all about quality. I love my phone case, but I know the fact that the leather is wearing, that it has a weird ridge in it, that it's breaking, and that the button isn't always working properly. I know that those are facts that I can summarize and create a challenge of, well, how do I improve this? What are ways that I could improve it, right? So that's what problem definition is. So I'm defining my problem as a quality problem and then moving forward with it. So now that you know what your problem is, how are you going to find an idea? Fun fact, you do it the exact same way that we found the problem in the first place. So you just sit there and say, these are the problems I have. What are some ways to fix it? And you couldn't use Bugs List here, but all of the ones that we talked about in problem finding are yet again useful. We can talk about the fact that you can sit there and brainstorm and say, okay, well, I would replace the leather with this. I would replace the rubber with this other kind of rubber, and the hard plastic seems to be good. That's a good quality that I can keep, right? So you can also talk to other people and be like, okay, is the problem of phone case quality something that affects you, right? What are some issues you have? And once they talk about it, you can kind of pick up on things that they have because they're going to have some ideas on it too. Be like, oh yeah, well, I would improve my phone case by adding this. And then you can take that idea that you get from those surveys and incorporate those ideas into your potential solution, right? So, moving on from there, now that you have some solutions, you need to evaluate them. You need to select one, right? And this is actually going to be the last segment that we talk about directly from the simplex solution, because this really wraps it up. This is your business idea, right? This is going through, so you're evaluating and selecting which solution works best, right? So how do you evaluate it? What metrics do you use in order to judge whether a solution is good or not? Oftentimes the metrics can include things like price. How much is it going to cost in order to make a better phone case? Is it going to cost more than I will be able to make selling these phone cases, right? And laying out all of these solutions and saying which one works best. So the important things to remember when selecting a solution is to not be biased. Do not choose your solution over someone else's just because it's yours. That bias will not help you in the long run. And then avoid leaping to conclusions based on a single thing. So I will admit, I jumped to a conclusion saying that it was a quality issue. To me, that's what it seems like. Other people might have other conclusions. They might say that, oh, Zane, you're just too rough on it. You need to upgrade to a more rugged phone case, right? So being able to not leap to conclusions is very important when selecting a solution. And then finding interesting but flawed solutions. So I always love to start out a brainstorming session by just saying the most random things, because you would be amazed how you can take something that's really wild and turn it into a viable product or solution. You can take something that would never work, but it's the basis for a good idea, right? The bones are there to be good. And so that's something you can look at, right? So the important thing is to also reevaluate it. Once you select it, have someone else look at it. Be like, do you agree with this? Do you think this is a good evaluation? Do you think this is a good solution to my problem? So we're done, right? That's all we need, right? We only have to find the solution, right? We only have to evaluate it once, don't we? No, we don't. We need to be constantly evaluating it. So once you have selected what you believe is the best solution, remember to be flexible. Your customers are always going to know what problems they have and how to solve them. So be willing to listen to them and reevaluate when something's not working, right? So be able to say, okay, this is what it is, here y'all go. You sell it to them. Well, they provide feedback. And you look at it and you reevaluate it all and say, oh, based on what my customers said, I realize now that this was not the best solution and I should change it for Model 2 and I should change it in this way to best fit my customers' needs. So with that, and remembering that you're always reevaluating, let's wrap up and summarize everything we've talked about today. So what have we talked about? We've talked about idea generation and how you select, how do you define a problem? So your problem finding, your fact finding about your problem. So coming up with that one thing that bugs you, that underlying theme of something that you can tie multiple problems to. And then taking that underlying theme and finding out more information about it, right? And then once you have all of the facts that you think you need, defining what that problem exactly is. Saying, this is the problem. These are the facts about it. This is why it's a problem, and it's a problem for multiple people. So then you go into the next stage of idea finding, and you take a step back and you say, okay, how do I solve this, right? How do I come up with these solutions? And you use tools like brainstorming or surveying or any of the number of tools that we talked about earlier in order to break down that problem and come together with a good solution, right? And then once you kind of have that solution, evaluate it and select which one is going to be right. So go through and set the criteria with which you're going to judge your solutions. and then go through and, using those criteria, select which one is the best solution for your problem. And then remember, always listen to your customers, because they know more about the problem than you do at the end of the day. They know more about the product and the problem, and they will lead you into ways that you need to improve, right? So always be willing to reevaluate and change and select maybe a slightly different product next time. So with that, I want to thank you all for your time. Be looking forward to the activity that comes up next. It's one of my personal favorites. And again, thank you all so much, and hope y'all have a great rest of y'all's day.